What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be ranking the items we have in Fortnite Chapter 6 Season 3, and this is going to be from the perspective of the zero build mode exclusively. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, comment down below, and let me know what your favorite and least favorite items are this season. And if you guys would like to use my creator code in the item shop, it is evolvedjake, just like my channel name is. It should be like near the items towards the bottom of the screen. Well, let's get right into the ranking. Obviously, this should go without saying, but this is my opinion on the items. Whenever I make these videos, people are like, but that's your opinion. And it's like, it's my video, yes. We're going to start off with the Spire AR because I think it's, it's S tier. It's the best AR in the game right now. A lot of players have been kind of struggling to deal with like going back to the third-person weapons. I think I've adjusted pretty well to it by this point, and I think the accuracy on this is good enough to where even if you aren't really good at using the third-person weapons in managing bloom and spread, you could still full spray this, and the bloom isn't so large that it's just like terribly inaccurate. But there definitely are times where you're going to want to tap fire. I think it's accurate enough. I think the damage is very good. The magazine size is ridiculously large, which is really nice for spraying out cover and spraying out vehicles, which is something you're going to have to deal with a good amount this season with the removal of the pickaxe trick. So I think the Spire is S tier. Obviously, the mythic version of it is also S tier because it's just better. It has more damage, better fire rate, slightly larger magazine. I think the Spire AR is really good. The next weapon, I think, is something that this might be a bit of a controversial opinion. I think this might be like borderline A tier. So the Precision SMG is one of the few red dot weapons we have this season, and it's good. I think its main problem is just going to be its magazine size and its damage at range. If they buffed this to have like 30 round magazine, I think you would actually see a few people, especially the players who really hate using the third person weapons, actually gravitating towards this and using this. But with only 20 rounds in the mag, and as I said, not the greatest damage at range, like the damage really falls off, which isn't the worst thing in the world because it's really accurate and it has a really high fire rate. So even if you aren't hitting the hardest, that high fire rate can kind of make up for it, right? But that's where the magazine size really comes into play. The fact that the magazine is so minuscule that when you are hitting for low damage, even if your aim is impeccable, you potentially just run out of ammo before you get a kill. And when you're comparing it to something like the Spire AR, which has 50 rounds, I think it's really hard to justify using this. But I think the Precision SMG is like one magazine size buff away from being a pretty good weapon. But the magazine size, I think, really holds it back. And it makes it harder to deal with the Storm Beast, which we'll get to later on. Another weapon that I think has mag size problems and is the main reason why I'm not using it is going to be this burst pistol. I think the accuracy on this is incredible. If you're someone who really hates using the third person weapons, this is another choice for you because the bloom basically resets between bursts. And the burst rate is really high. It feels basically fully automatic. Like it shoots very fast. The damage on it is good. Again, the main problem is just going to be its magazine size. I believe it has 18 shots per mag. It reloads really quick, but just having to worry about reloading and reacquiring target is just something that you don't really want to have to deal with. And when you're comparing it to something that does not have that problem in the slightest, it kind of adds up. But I think this burst pistol is good. Again, one magazine size buff away, and it's probably the best item in the game. It's up there, or like one of the best like spray weapons in the game. This season would really benefit from having a medallion similar to the Night Rose medallion we had in Chapter 6 Season 1 that regenerated ammo right into the mag. I think there's a lot of weapons that would benefit from that, and they would become a lot more viable. So I think the burst pistol and the Precision SMG are both like incredibly underrated. The DMR, I'm going to probably put B tier. This is something that I really just don't like using. Every time I've had to use this, I just don't enjoy using it. The fire rate is really low. The damage is high. The mag size is also very low, which is, a problem potentially. But with the DMR style weapon, you're not really expecting a very large mag. My main problem with this weapon is that I only want to use two weapons this season. I want to use my shotgun and I want to use some sort of spray weapon that can be used for medium to long range and complement my shotgun. And using just shotgun DMR, it can work out. Like there will be times where it works out and it'll be good, but it's something that has like very small margins for error. If you miss your pump shot or don't hit a very good pump shot, or, you know, swap to the DMR and miss, it's the fight gets rough, and it also gets very rough to deal with any sort of vehicle with having only the DMR to chip damage on it. Pretty much anybody using a car is just going to be able to escape whenever they want. And then another problem is going to be the Storm Beast, which I guess we'll just rank the Storm Beast. I'm recording this on Thursday, the 19th, so this came out yesterday. My opinions may change. I'm going to put it A tier, I think. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if some people put it S tier. Using this item, you transform into a beast, and then you can run around and melee things with your claws. And the main kind of problem with this is I believe the beast has 600 total health before it is forced to transform back into a human. And this is throughout the course of the game, its HP doesn't regenerate. So if somebody is fighting a Storm Beast and then you come to third party, that Storm Beast obviously isn't going to be at its full health. I believe it's 600. I could be wrong. As I said, the item recently came out. But either way, you need to dump a lot of damage into the Storm Beast to defeat them and force them to transform back into their human form, right? And this isn't the most difficult thing this season, I think, because of how much mobility there is. But when you're using any of these sort of weapons that just have pitiful magazine sizes, it becomes even more difficult to deal with the Storm Beast. And that's another reason why, like, I wasn't really wanting to just use shotgun DMR before. But with this in the game, I am certainly not wanting to do that. I think it makes no sense at all. So, unfortunately, the addition of the Storm Beast, I think, just solidifies the Spire as, like, that much better of, like, a spray weapon. With its larger magazine, you could just spray out more shots and then hopefully deal with the Storm Beast and then use your mobility to get away once they get to you, and then just rinse and repeat that. If you're having to use mobility to escape and then reload and then use mobility to escape again as it catches up, the amount of damage you could do and your potential, like, kind of window to, you know, eliminate the beast or get a lot of damage just fades. So I really didn't like using any of these low mag size spray weapons before, but with the Storm Beast, certainly not. The Fury AR, it could go A or B. If the Spire AR wasn't in the game, I think this would be the best spray weapon. But with the Spire AR in the game, I don't really want to use the Fury. The Fury is a better shotgun complement spray weapon. Like, it has a faster fire rate, and I think it has a faster pullout time. So it complements a pump better than the Spire does. But I think it really lacks compared to the Spire at, like, longer range fights where I'm going to be using the AR for. So I feel like the Spire AR is much better at long range and a bit worse in close. Actually, probably a good amount worse in close range too. But either way, I just don't like the Fury very much. And again, it has mag size problems. It's not a terrible mag size, but it's not great either. And when dealing with cars and when dealing with the Storm Beast, I'm going to wish I had the Spire. So we'll put the Fury at A tier. If someone tells me this is their favorite spy weapon, I'm not surprised. It's like, okay, yeah, it's incredible. And I feel that way about the burst pistol too. Like, each of these, I think, are all in the running for best spray weapon. It's just kind of preference. But my preference is definitely the Spire. What weapon would be interesting to do next? The kill switch revolvers, I'm going to put at A tier. I think this is an item that a lot of people would have at S tier. It suffers from a similar problem as a lot of the other weapons in that it has a low mag size, but one of the boons in the game reloads your weapons whenever you do any sort of parkour, and the kind of, like, slow down bullet time effect of the kill switch revolvers, that counts as parkour, so it just naturally reloads itself whenever you do that, and that boon and these revolvers pair incredibly well, and that definitely bumps it up. I would say it's B tier on its own and then A tier with that boon. My main kind of concern with these is just that you often make yourself a very exposed target, and if you're in a fight with somebody and you go into, like, the slow-mo effect with the revolvers, they become very accurate, so you can deal a lot of damage very quickly, and the DPS on these is incredible. But if your opponent is able to use cover and you aren't able to use cover because you're in the air, you are a much easier target to hit. And from what I've seen playing this game, it's a very good weapon. You can win countless games with these. Like, they're very good. But whenever you play against someone that's good and you play against someone with good aim, you are making yourself an easy target with these. And that's kind of been my experience playing ranked this season and talking to other, like, very good players, is that, like, they're incredibly fun. They're very good, but versus good people, they're maybe not as good. One benefit to them, though, is, as I said, you can slow-mo yourself and stay in air. And in, like, a straight-up gunfight, I'm not the biggest fan of that unless I already have a lot of pressure in the fight. But versus a Storm Beast, it's very good because the Storm Beast is a melee attack, and so you can kind of just dive in air, shoot the beast with your revolvers while you're basically levitating in air, and then just rinse and repeat that, and it makes the Storm Beast have a much harder time dealing with you. So if you've been really struggling with the Storm Beast and you like the revolvers, it does somewhat counter it. It's still going to take a while for you to eliminate it, but you will be a bit safer when doing so. I think next we're going to do the shotguns. I'm going to put the Sentinel Pump S tier. This is a surprise to no one. The Sentinel Pump has been my favorite shotgun as long as it's been in the loot pool in Chapter 6, and this season is no different. What is different, though, is the other options got better. So at the start of this season, coming into it, I probably would have ranked the Outlaw and the Twinfire Auto Shotgun both at like C tier, but they have both gotten buffs. The Outlaw Shotgun, or the Auto Shotgun, sorry, I believe got increased damage and increased max damage and a slight benefit to its reload speed. I would put it at B tier now. I think it's solid. I still don't prefer to use it, but I'm less irritated if I have to use it off spawn. So that's good, I guess. If they buffed the fire rate of it or like massively improved the reload speed, I think it'd be a lot better. But reload speed aside, it still is a weapon that just feels very awkward to fight with to me for whatever reason. I don't know why. It just has always felt off to me, and its range is not very good. And this season has a lot of mobility, and that makes it harder to justify using a bad range shotgun. It's not like the Sentinel Pump's range is outstanding, but it's better than this. And the tighter pellet spread of the Sentinel Pump, even if the range isn't spectacular, like even if the range was equal between these two weapons, the fact that the Sentinel Pump has a tighter pellet spreads means it would perform better and more consistent in like kind of those medium-ish range shotgun fights. Obviously, you're not having medium range fights with a shotgun, but like the 3.5 meter range, you know what I'm saying? Like slightly out of ideal shotgun range, the Sentinel Pump performs better. And the amount of mobility in this season, I really value that. The Outlaw Shotgun, I think I'd put it A tier now. It's pretty good. I still don't prefer to use it, but I definitely will under certain circumstances. Like if I have a terribly rarity-wise Sentinel Pump, if I have the choice of like a gray pump or a purple Outlaw, I might take the purple Outlaw, and I was not doing that at the start of this season. So I think the Outlaw is good. Unfortunately, it suffers from magazine size. Like a lot of these weapons, having only 2 shells before you have to reload is something that, again, has very thin margins. It will work a lot of times, but whenever it doesn't work, you're probably just going to lose the game off that. There's not much room for any sort of error or any sort of like unfortunate circumstance happening. Doesn't have the greatest range, doesn't have the greatest pellet spread. There's so much mobility in the game that it makes it easy for people to get out of range of your shotgun. One interesting interaction is, as I was talking about with the revolvers and the boon that reloads off parkour, if you get S tier, it reloads your weapons that aren't currently equipped. And so you can combine the revolvers and the Outlaw Shotgun to basically use the revolver jump to reload a shell into your Outlaw Shotgun if you have S tier and if you have that boon. So that interaction is good and definitely helps deal with the low magazines or low ammo count of the Outlaw, but it's still not my preferred shotgun to use. And as I said, the revolvers aren't my preferred item to use either. So like them benefiting each other is nice, and if you like both of these items, that's a great combo for you, but it's definitely not my preferred way to play the game. Next, we can rank the base boost gloves. They're S tier. Is this a surprise to anybody? No, it's the best mobility in the game right now. If you still haven't really learned how to master and use this item, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. They're very good, and with this week's update, they actually added the mythic version into the loot pool. It was already in the loot pool, but you could only get it from the wall at Supernova Academy. But now you can actually get the mythic gloves from the A and S tier crates, and that just makes the base boost gloves even that much better. And the hero ranks are something I didn't really think or care very much about early on in this season. They're nice to have, sure. But with the mythic gloves coming into the loot pool, I want to get to A rank as fast as I can, start opening those crates and get the mythic gloves. Because when you have mythic gloves and other players don't, you're going to have an advantage on chasing them. You're going to have an advantage on resetting the fight versus them. And versus the Storm Beast, having the 4 charges is going to make it that much easier and that much like more likely that you can actually out-kite it and defeat it. So I really want to have those mythic gloves for those reasons, but the Storm Beast especially. Next item, scanner, S tier as well. Incredibly overpowered. I am surprised this is in the game. You just scan the area every 25 seconds, get a mark of the area, know where other players are. Anytime you're in any sort of like sketchy, you're going into a new area, you just scan, learn if there's anybody hiding there. Going into one of the bunkers, you can scan to see if anyone's hiding there. If a bush is looking sus to you, scan, you'll know if anybody's in there and get an easy elimination on them. the amount that you can just use this and not think about like, should I use it or should I not use it, I think is really busted. And in team game modes, you can even drop it to your teammates, and the cooldown is player specific, not item specific. So I could scan, drop my scanner to you. You could pick it up and scan right away, drop it back to me, and then when the cooldown's done for me, I could scan again. Very busted. Next, we could rank this is just C tier, I guess. Is there much to talk about with this? Not really. Okay, it's C tier, I guess. I don't know. I don't see anybody using this outside of early game. Maybe some people would want to use like DMR, this SMG, and pump, but I just don't really want to run 3 guns this season. Shockwaves. Normally, I would rank them S tier, and just how I feel about the item is it's an S tier item. But this season, I think I want to put it A tier just because I think the base boost gloves is a better mobility to have this season. I also didn't talk about the base boost gloves. You can use it to break structures and stuff. And Fortnite did nerf that, but it still does way too much structure damage in some instances. But either way, I love shockwaves. It's one of my favorite items in this game ever. But with how they spawn this season, they spawn out of rare chests. There's NPCs that sell them, and then you get them by putting these orange sprites into the shrines. And if you do that, you'll get 4 shockwaves, which is nice. If you want to have shockwaves, it's easy to get them, I think. But staying topped off on them throughout the course of the game is what I don't like about them this season. They're very good to have. I enjoy using them, but I don't feel like going to a sprite shrine several times a game to stock up on shockwaves whenever I use them and inevitably run out. So I think they're good, but with how this season plays, I think the base boost gloves are better. And with the Storm Beast coming into the game, if I'm fighting somebody using the Beast, I just want to constantly use my mobility, get away, shoot at them. Once they get to me, I'll use my mobility again, shoot at them, and just rinse and repeat that. Shockwaves are not a good mobility item for that sort of thing. The Mist form, I don't know how to rank this. We'll put it at B tier, I guess. I'm not a huge fan of this. What it does is it turns you into a bird or a bat. I say bat, and people were not very happy about that, so I'm just going to keep saying bat. It turns you into a bat, and you have a brief amount of time to fly around, and you're completely invincible when you do that to damage. I don't know if you're invincible to the storm, but either way, you can't be damaged when doing that. And a lot of people thought, like, oh, this is going to be an incredible escape item, and it's going to be really annoying. The duration of flight isn't so long that you can just get away from a fight easily, and with how the base boost gloves are, especially if you have the mythic ones, I think you can very easily keep pace. But there's definitely some times where you're going to be able to use this to escape. One thing I've thought of with double mobility is like using the gloves and then activating the bird while in air. If you're ever trying to run away from somebody while you're weak, they can easily shoot you out of the air. But if you had the base boost gloves combined with this, you could kind of create distance and create a period of invincibility for yourself. So there's that. But either way, I'm not a huge fan of this item. It is a mobility item. I'll take it if I have no mobility. But I'm sad every time this spawns in a hero item or one of the crates instead of the gloves. So that's kind of how I feel about it. These gloves, I guess we'll put C tier. I'm not a big fan of them. Basically, you just get close to people and then they unleash bats. And I believe the bats do 12 damage for each one that hits. And it's basically just like an SMG, but in glove form. You just do damage over time as you look at the opponent. And it can kill rather quick, but it's just not a playstyle that I want to have and that I think is particularly consistent or effective. You can definitely get some cheese kills with this, but in a 1v1 versus somebody who's decent, this is not how I want to play the game. You can actually use it to damage players in cars for some reason. Like you can be in a car with an enemy player and just use this on them and kill them pretty quick. But it's not, I don't want to carry it for that, you know? One interesting thing is you can combine the mist form and the mist gloves. It will still take 2 inventory slots, but you improve both. The cape gets decreased cooldown between uses, and then the gloves get increased damage. So if you really enjoy using both of these items, that's a thing you could do. And then the kind of playstyle there is you get onto somebody while you're invincible as a bat, and then you just unleash damage on them with this, and then hopefully you get the kill that way. But again, I feel like that's a very like coin flippy playstyle and not something that's like going to consistently work versus decent players. Next, we'll have the Bat Grappler. It's S tier. It's incredibly good. Very good for traveling, very good for running away, very good for chasing people. Versus a Storm Beast, it's nice to have this and the gloves. They recently made it to where if you purchase it from the Robin NPC, you'll actually have 40 uses. And then once you eliminate somebody who has it and it's dropped, it'll drop with 20. So only the person who buys it gets 40 uses. But it's just an incredible item. I feel like it goes without saying. Both medallions I think are incredibly good. So this one I believe regens your shield up to 50 shield, and it actually does so pretty quick. And then it also makes it to where you reload weapons faster. And 50 shield isn't incredible in an amount, you know, but I like carrying big pots, or even if you like carrying chugs, that saves big pots for you that you would have used, or that saves heals in your chug, which is nice. And as I said, it heals you pretty quick, which is nice because of the amount of mobility this season. There's a lot of like resetting and getting away in fights, and I'm often surprised when I have this medallion how much I'm able to heal just off like the time it takes me to use 2 base boost glove charges. So I think this is S tier. This other one I'm also gonna put at S tier, I guess. I really like it. Some people don't. It improves your jump and makes sure you jump further, faster, and then I believe you're also immune to fall damage when you jump, and it turns you invisible when you sprint jump. Those things apply to your sprint jump, sorry. But it turns you invisible when you sprint jump, and this is incredibly good in shotgun fights, I think. In any sort of close range shotgun fight around a bubble or around cover, being able to just sprint jump and go invisible throws your opponent off in a fight that is typically the more important fights in the game, I think. Often the fights versus the better players in the lobby come down to close range shotgun fights, and having this medallion to give yourself an advantage in those fights is really nice. One weird mechanic about it is if you're jumping, you won't regen stamina. So even if you're not sprint jumping, if you're just regular jumping and you don't have this medallion, you'll regen stamina rather quickly. But with this medallion, you don't regen stamina. If you're jumping, you need to make sure you stand still, or like not stand still, but just stop jumping and get your stamina back. It's not really hard to do, but it's something that if you're like me and have been playing this game for almost 8 years, you just kind of have that habit of jumping constantly to potentially throw off like enemy shots, or like snipers back in the day is why it was such a big deal, and why a lot of Fortnite players have that habit. But either way, I like both these medallions a lot. The reveal sizes on them aren't very large. There isn't anything super busted in the game right now, like the TIE Fighters or X-Wings that'll just hunt you. And then also you need to be pretty close for them to, you need to be pretty close to them for them to even show on the map. Like not incredibly close, but if you're like at Brutal Boxcars and the medallion is at Utopia City, or yeah, let's just say Utopia City, I'm not even sure if they'll show on the map. Like if they're decently far away, the circle doesn't show at all times, which is kind of unique to this season, I believe. So I think these medallions are very good, and the downsides for using them aren't very large. So that's why I would put them S tier. The dog treat, we'll put it D tier, I guess. We'll have it in D tier just to have something there. You can throw one at a structure to get 250 hero points for the first time in a match, and that's the only time I've ever used this. There's times where like if an enemy is playing incredibly slow, you could use it to flush them out or something. But I don't think it's a very good item, and it's not something I'm going to consciously carry. Sometimes I use it off spawn. The dash sprite, I don't know where to rank this. I like having the dashes a lot. So they're very good at dealing with any sort of awkward timing, or anybody using these low range shotguns. I've gotten comments of people saying they just lose to auto shotgun noobs all the time. Get dashes. If they're trying to jump on you with the auto shotgun, dash away. You're probably at a range of their shotgun. Swap to your AR. They'll keep using their shotgun, and you could just eliminate them. The dashes are very good, and there's so many times that if you're trying to push somebody and you just need that little extra distance, it's good for that. If you're trying to get away from somebody, it's good for that. Like, I really enjoy having the dashes. I really enjoyed having them in Chapter 5, and this chapter is no different. This thing, I'm going to put at C tier. I think this, of all the items in the current loot pool, these gloves and this sprite are the ones I have the least amount of experience with. So it shoots out lasers and just kind of does damage, similar to how a spray weapon would deal damage. You know, it's just over time as you look at the person. One interesting mechanic of it is that it can hit through shield bubbles. At least it could at one time. I don't know if that's a bug and if Epic has fixed it, but at one point in time, it could hit through shield bubbles. Not really something I want to carry exclusively for that. It's not a particularly exciting or good item to me. The burst pistol exotic, I kind of want to put lower than the burst pistol. I don't like this. So what this does is the first and last shot of the magazine gives a shockwave effect. And I don't think the shockwave effect is good enough to just be mobility, especially because you have to reload to use it, you know, over and over again, or shoot out your entire mag. And then if I'm shooting an enemy with it, there's times where it could grief them, but I feel like there's also times where it could grief me, and it makes like tracking that enemy harder. So I don't really want to use this. I would rather use the regular burst pistol. Exotic Sentinel Pump, I'm going to have it S tier. I think it's very good. What this does is it alternates between slowing down the opponent or speeding you up when you hit a shot. And that, I believe this was buffed in this week's update. I never really noticed the effect of it prior to this week's update, but I don't know if they like made the effects last longer or what, but I've used this a good amount before this week's update, and now after this week's update, I feel like the effects last longer. So it's just a sentinel pump. It has the same stats as a gold pump, but it just has that little extra effect, which could maybe benefit you in some situations. The exotic yoink outlaw, I think I'm going to put it S tier. So when they buffed the outlaw, they actually made this one do the most damage. I believe it does 130 body damage. So it hits incredibly hard. The effect is that it pulls people towards you, which is a bit awkward at times, but the main reason I've had this so high is just for the extra damage. It's quite good. And then bubbles and bunkers, I think I'll put it like B tier or A tier. They're both fine. They previously both got griefed by the base boost gloves, so the base boost would go through shield bubbles, and then it just destroys cover very well. It still destroys cover very well as of the time I'm recording this video, so the bunkers are still kind of countered by the base boost gloves. The shield bubbles no longer have the base boost travel through it, so you could argue that maybe bubbles are a little bit better. I think if you're playing ranked, you want one or the other, and in team game modes, you want both on your team. Like, you want someone having bubbles and you want someone having bunkers. For me personally, I think I'd rather have bunkers, but a lot of times I just choose based on what my teammates are carrying or what I have access to. If I have the choice of 4 bubbles or 1 bunker, probably going to take the bubbles. Either way, in pubs, I don't really carry either of these items very frequently, but that is how I would rank the items in the Chapter 6 Season 3 loot pool. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, comment down below what your favorite and least favorite items are this season, and if you would like to use my code in the item shop, it is EvolveJake. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.